Well, hey, everybody, it's Pastor Phil. Welcome to the LifePoint Christian Church podcast. Today's a special episode because I'm joined by a good friend named Darren Key. He is the CEO of Christian Financial Resources, which is an amazing ministry. And today he's going to share some things with us about donor-advised giving funds. And if you've never heard about that, you definitely want to stick around and listen. Welcome, Darren. Thank you for coming to hang out with us today.
Yeah, Phil, thanks so much for having me. I love LifePoint and excited about this conversation.
Yeah, I was thinking, I wanted to say from the beginning, LifePoint would not be here without Christian Financial Resources.
Well, I was there the very first Sunday it launched.
Is that right?
So, yeah, I was thinking about that there in the elementary school, I believe is where it started.
Yeah, that's true.
Long time
here
ago.
we are, 23 years later or something. I don't know the exact
it's pretty
thing.
cool to think about all the lives you guys have impacted.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, again, thanks for what you do. Give us for people who don't know what Christian Financial Resources is, what is just a sort of simple definition for people?
So, CFR is a movement of people, ministries, and businesses stewarding God-given resources to fund ministry and change lives. And so CFR is what's called a church extension fund that provides loans to churches like LifePoint, with people and organizations parking some of their savings, their investments, their giving at CFR where they earn interest.
Yeah.
And then we can make these loans to these churches where churches can buy land, build buildings, more people can hear about Jesus. And also, in addition to that side, we also provide a lot of stewardship resources, as you know. We helped LifePoint through a capital campaign in the past. We have helped many LifePoint families with no-cost legacy seminars.
Yes.
And so, we've funded now over 1,000 ministry loans. On a typical weekend, over 450,000 people attend those churches.
Wow.
And we now are over 8,000 accounts, and we've got over $900 million that we manage. So it's pretty cool.
It's amazing to think about the impact, because I think when we first started the church, you guys had been around for a little while, but you were managing, I don't know, what was it, 20 million or something like that?
Yeah, it would have been, back when it got started, it would have been about $20 million.
And now 900 million. So that's growth that I think, is really what we're talking about in general, stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
You could take your money and you could put it in a regular bank in a savings account and you'll get some interest. But you could take your money and put it at CFR and it will get interest competitive interest, and that money will be used to further the kingdom because you're going to loan it to churches to build buildings.
That's right. And the stories, I could sit here all day and tell you stories about those over 1,000 churches that we have funded. Just incredible life change.
Yeah.
The impact is just profound. So we talk about return on investment. There's always the financial return, but when you look at the kingdom return, it's staggering.
Right.
That's why I love what I get to do so much.
Yeah, and it's important. It's diligence, right? The resources, and of course, we've been doing a teaching series on finances at LifePoint, and it's just being diligent with what God is allowing you to use for just that short period of time.
Well, that's when I, was doing all my education. I never knew there was going to be something like this out there, and I love that I get to use the skills God gave me to do this.
That's cool. It's smart. Well, speaking of smart, donor-advised giving funds. That's our main topic for today. A lot of mystery. Sometimes I'll say to somebody, even somebody who I think is pretty financially savvy, so, hey, you have a donor-advised giving fund? They go, what?
That's exactly
so what is it? What is it, and why should people have it?
Yeah, so a lot of people don't know that they have been around for 100 years now.
Really?
And every Sunday I speak in churches, and every single church I go to, the majority of people have never heard about them. So pretty neat. So a giving fund is what we call at CFR are donor-advised funds. The IRS name for them is donor-advised funds. We just kind of think giving fund sounds a little bit more user-friendly than donor-advised funds, or DAFs, as you may have heard of them. And so when I'm out talking every Sunday to people about giving funds, I say kind of think of it in your mind like a charity checking and investment account. Basically, what you do is you're able to contribute gifts to your giving fund, and then you recommend grants to your church and other 501c3 charities out of your giving fund. And it's just amazing how many people don't know about these, and you're going to hear about it today. There's just so many advantages of using giving funds.
I want to go through that. Most people that give to our church and many other churches, they just write a check out of their checking account. Why is that a big mistake?
Yeah, so I'm a certified financial planner. And I will tell you that one of the things I say every Sunday is many people of you in this church today are making the mistake of doing your giving out of your bank checking account when you could use a giving fund and you could see all the different advantages. And so, Scripture's full of passages about wisdom. You and I could talk about all kinds of them. Proverbs, that's the whole book, basically. So, all about wisdom. And I love Ephesians 5:15-16 says, be careful then how you live, not as unwise, but as wise. So I have 4 wise reasons that people should use giving funds to do their giving to charities instead of giving out of their bank checking account. So first one of those, I like to say is giving funds simplify giving. So we find most givers in our churches, because people are generous, they tend to give to their church and they give to some other charities also. And so whenever you contribute to a giving fund, you get one tax receipt for all your charitable giving, instead of having to track them down from every charity.
Right.
Now, I think LifePoint, you guys are great. You get all your donor receipts out. Some charities are not as good about that. And then it's just a hassle.
We already sent ours out.
Yeah, see, you're on the ball.
So,
I knew you would be. But, the IRS allows us to give a giver a receipt anytime they put anything into their giving fund, since a giving fund is considered a charity. So the money can sit in your giving fund as long as you like.
Right.
When you are ready to make a grant out of your giving fund, you just log into the online portal. You recommend a grant out of that giving fund into whatever charity that you want. CFR mails the grant check out for you, and that gives you a record of all your contributions into your giving fund and all your grants out of your giving fund. I just ran mine the other day. For the last several years, it was really cool. I just wanted to see how much have I put in my giving fund over several years, how much have I granted out, and to what charities. I had it in just a couple seconds.
Well, speaking of that, so I have one. This is something that you have talked to me about a few years ago, and I finally said, okay, this is easy. Setting up, by the way, was very simple through your website. So what I did is now, instead of giving to LifePoint or any other charity by writing a check or by doing something online, I put all of that money into my giving fund at CFR, and then I log into CFR and I go, okay, I want to give X amount every month to this charity, X amount every quarter to this one, a one-time gift to this one. It's all in the same place. So that really does make a lot of sense when it comes to tax time. You're not tracking everything down. You're in one location.
Yep. So simplify giving. That's the number one first advantage that I say for everybody.
And what's the second one?
All right. So the second one, well, now we get into some really nice advantages. Giving funds are tax smart. So CFR is a nonprofit ministry, and I need to say we are not tax advisors, although I am a certified financial planner. So this is going to be some general free education. I always tell everyone, verify it with your tax advisor for your specific situation. Yeah. My belief is that most charities, like LifePoint, are better stewards of the money than the federal government.
I would hope so.
So here's what I like. I like to help people pay less taxes to Uncle Sam so they can be more generous to churches and charities, because I know the life change is going to take place. So the very first tax benefit is for everyone. When you put money into a giving fund, it earns interest. Right now, at time of this recording for this year, it's our 45-year anniversary, and so we're paying 4.5% on our giving fund all year.
Wow.
All of that is tax-free. So, when you open up another account at CFR, like one of our Ready Access or a certificate, or if you open up a bank account or a brokerage account somewhere, you get a tax filing every year. You have to report on your taxes. A giving fund, we do not have to send you one of those. So all the interest you earn is basically just more interest that you can grant to charity. So that's the first thing for tax. Secondly, is a tax benefit for some people. So I like to say when I travel the country is friends don't let friends give cash unless that's all they have. So if you are someone that owns appreciated assets that you've held for longer than a year, so think of things like stock, mutual funds, exchange traded funds, crypto. You can contribute those assets into your giving fund and you never have to pay capital gains taxes.
Wow.
So like years ago, I bought a little company, you may have heard of them, called Apple. That Apple stock went up a lot. The silliest thing I could do would be to give to my church out of my checking account. Instead, it's to take some of my Apple shares, transfer them over to my giving fund, and I never have to pay any capital gains on all those gains. Plus, I get that write-off for whatever the value is on the day I make the transfer.
Right.
So let's just kind of think that you bought some asset, some stock or mutual fund or crypto. You bought it at $10,000. Today it's worth $15,000 more than a year later. You contribute that stock or crypto into your giving fund. You never have to pay any capital gains tax on that $5,000. Plus, you have a tax deduction for $15,000 if you itemize on your taxes. So that is incredible. It's way better than giving from your bank checking account. Now, one of the things that I often hear people say is they'll say, but Darren, I really like that stock or I like that crypto. And I tell them, great. Take the money that you are about to give your church or your charity out of your checking account. Instead, go take those dollars, buy that stock, buy that crypto at the higher price. That way, when you sell it one day in the future, you're only having to pay the capital gains from the day that you bought it forward. So if this is probably the biggest lesson for some people to hear today, because every time I speak in a church, I have a line of people afterwards wanting to come talk to me about this. If you own appreciated stock, mutual funds, crypto, outside of a retirement account that you've held longer than 1 year, that's went up in value, give that before you ever give to a charity out of your bank checking account. Now, the third tax advantage for being tax smart is for some middle income families. And you and I were talking about it just before we started this today. And I call this benefit, good things come in bunches. So there was a big change back in the tax code in 2017. For you to be able to itemize on your taxes, the amount of deductions that you had to have went up a lot.
Right.
Well, in 2025, the standard deduction is $30,000. There's a lot of people that are giving to charities that are not getting a tax write-off anymore. Because the major deductions you have, one is your property and sales tax. Now, we live here in Florida, so we don't have any state income tax. But we have property taxes and we have local state taxes. You're able to list that up to $10,000. So that can be $10,000 of your $30,000. And then if you have a loan on your house, all the mortgage interest, that gets to be counted as a deduction. And then the third most common one that people have is their charitable giving. But so all those deductions have to be over $30,000. There's some other ones out there that some people have if you have major medical bills or you had a theft issue or something like that. But those three that I mentioned are kind of the major ones that we have. So if those are less than $30,000, that means you actually are just going to take the standard deduction. Well, this whole idea of bunching is where you would take 2 or 3 years of your giving. You would dump it in 1 year into your giving fund and then give it to LifePoint and other charities over 2 or 3 years. And that way, maybe every other year or maybe every 3 years, you get above that $30,000. And so you do get to take a deduction for your giving. And then the other years, you just take the standard deduction. So that is a great way to help people.
I just wanted to say something with the bunching. I think that's a lot of people would ask the question to the church and say, well, wouldn't you, because let's say you want to spend a year putting everything into your donor advised giving fund because you want to take the tax advantage, which means for that period of time, you're not giving that money to the church. You will, it's just sort of on hold or bunching up.
That's right.
People say, well, wouldn't that hurt the church? My answer is no.
No, that's right.
No, because I would say, number one, first, there's not enough people doing that to really make an impact. But second of all, that's more money for God's kingdom anyway.
That's right.
And then it will sort of even out. And I think the amount of money that you can avoid giving to the government and giving to the church, I mean, the difference there because of the tax benefits and because of the interest and stuff, it's all going to sort of work out. So I know a lot of people have that sort of question. Is it going to be a cash flow thing? But we're okay with it, at least at our church.
That's exactly right. And then the final benefit for this tax smart idea is this thing I call give what you don't have. So sometimes we have people that they'll do like outside speaking, or maybe they do some side little hustle job or something like that. And what they'll do is they'll just tell the person, hey, rather than paying me for this, why don't you just make a gift to my family giving fund?
Oh.
And what's really cool about that is I've loved watching, I've helped several pastors do this when they're performing a wedding or something. And they'll say, hey, rather than paying me, just put it in my giving fund. What's awesome is that person gets a tax write-off for that because they made a gift to a charity, a giving fund. And then the pastor, or maybe you're not a pastor, maybe you're just someone else in the church that has some side thing, you've now got your tithe pre-funded for you. Somebody put it in there. So it's a really little cool. It's a rare thing, but I always like to mention it because I've had some people that really take advantage of it. So first thing was giving funds, simplify giving. Giving funds are tax smart.
Right. Now, one question that people might have is, so they like to give anonymously. That's one thing you can do with cash. How do you do that through your giving fund? Because once you go into the dashboard and you say, okay, here's the ministry I want to give to, you go through the process. I think you have to look it up by a tax ID number. There's a couple of things pops right up. How do you do it so that it's anonymous if that's what you want it to be?
Yeah, we see there are some times that people do give anonymously to charities. We send out a lot of grant checks every week from giving funds. And we had a really cool story that in one of our churches this last year helped facilitate our largest gift in our history. It was a business owner and said, hey, I want to open up this giving fund. He opened up one for $3.1 million. A week later, he had us FedEx to his church a $3.1 million anonymous grant to fund their second campus.
Wow.
And he had it anonymous. And so we FedEx the package. Pastor opens up FedEx from CFR. He sees $3.1 million grant. Unbelievable. I wish the TV cameras could have been there for that one. But this business owner, he really was excited about it because he loved the idea that the church wasn't going to know how much he had.
Right.
They probably had no idea he was that wealthy.
Wow.
And then he loved the idea that he was going to be able to bless it anonymously. Now he's even talking about another large grant for another nonprofit charity. So yeah, you can on the portal, basically gives you the choice. If you want to, you just check the box that says, I'd like it to go anonymously. I would say 99% of the grants that we send out, people list the name of their giving fund when we send it. But we do have some of those where they don't want to be hounded by the charity. They don't want the church to know how much they have. And we obviously, it's wonderful if we can help facilitate gifts that maybe wouldn't happen at times because of that anonymous feature. So,
and you can also specify there when you create the grant, whether it's to go, say, if you want to go to the building fund, or if there's some kind of special offering or something. Like I'll always, I work for a ministry called Keys for Kids, and I give to them through my giving fund. And sometimes they'll have a special fundraiser, a dinner or something. And so I'll write on the little note like, okay, it's coming from my giving fund. So there's a bit of a turnaround. What's the turnaround usually like? Is it a week or two?
Yeah, we mail all of our checks out every Thursday. Oh, okay. So we do once a week. We send out, lots and lots of grant checks as these keep growing.
And you can specify exactly what it goes to.
That's right.
Yeah.
So then the third thing, Phil, so obviously simplify giving, tax smart. Third thing is the CFR giving funds provide maximum kingdom impact. And what's really neat is when people's money sits at CFR, as we talked about earlier, we're using those dollars to make loans to churches like LifePoint to buy buildings and, basically get construction loans. And so you're being a strategic steward of what God has entrusted to you. Think about that. Kids are learning to follow Jesus in the churches that we fund. Marriages are growing stronger. People far from God are being baptized. A quote I heard recently is, I did not cause that, but I'm a part of that. And I love that every one of our givers that has a giving fund at CFR, they are a part of all these things going on in these over 1,000 ministry loans that we've funded. It's why we think our CFR giving fund is a better option than all the secular options that are out there that just invest money in secular investments. You know, it's great what some of the companies in the U.S. are doing, but I love what churches and ministries are doing, and only God knows all the stories that are going to be impacted. And so, we're also kind of special. Most places charge a fee to manage giving funds. We actually don't charge a fee. And so that means that a lot of places charge 1% or more. And so that means that's less dollars that are going out to ministries. And so our people are getting that benefit, and that's more money being given away.
there's really no reason not to do it. I think the only thing that is a hurdle or a barrier for people is, okay, what do I got to do? Who do I have to call? I will say this is great about CFR. When you call on the phone, somebody always answers the call. They are always very helpful, and the website's very simple to use. So if somebody wants to do it, it's like, okay, let me investigate this. What's step one? How do they get started?
First thing, they go onto cfrministry.org. They're just going to basically fill out the application, just a few minutes, and then they just have to decide how they're going to fund it.
Yeah.
Right now, once again, if they own appreciated assets, they should fund it with stock or things like that. If they don't have that, then they would fund it out of their bank account. We're actually working right now on a module. We'll be able to link to people's bank account and do all that. So that'll be coming here in the future too. So yeah, it's really powerful to do that. Then the fourth reason of why we think there's so many advantages in the giving fund is giving funds allow you to leave a legacy. So I've got 4 kids and my estate plan, and so far they have not been disinherited. That may change one day, but right now they're all getting 20% of my wife and I's estate if we were to pass away. I remind them, though, that could change if they ever go crazy on us. The other 20% in our estate plan, we used to list several specific charities. Well, I travel the country speaking in charities, and I'm always, wanting to change charities because I meet new charities and other things. And so I had to keep amending my estate plan. That was a pain. That was a hassle. Right. Well, now what my wife and I have done is that 20% is all going into the Key Family Giving Fund when she and I pass away. And so it's simplified our estate so much. So we love that. What we've done is we've left our kids an approved list of charities at CFR. When my wife and I pass away one day, 20% of the estate goes into that giving fund. Our kids are going to do the due diligence, make sure the churches are still teaching what mom and dad believes. Right. Same with the charities. And then they get to decide what dollar amount goes to which of the approved charities. So, which is also kind of helping that culture of generosity get passed down to the next generation, which is, that's a big challenge.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so we never have to amend our estate plan again unless we want to change the percentage that is going to go into our giving fund. Right. And what's really cool, this too, is we'll do that for people at no cost. We'll even help people get their legacy plan drafted if they're going to leave money to ministry. I
actually have to go in and change mine because we did the legacy planning through CFR. But at that time, we didn't have a giving fund. So we specified, 4 or 5 different ministries. So I actually have to go and change it and just say it's just it's called the Heirs Giving Fund.
Exactly.
So, The other thing that's interesting that our church people, I think, would want to know is we actually do our missions giving from LifePoint through a LifePoint donor advised giving fund at CFR.
That's right.
It's the same thing, just simplifies it. So rather than having to talk to our bookkeeper and say, give to there, this, we just handle it from here.
We're finding a lot of churches love using giving funds for their missions giving because then we mail all the checks out for them. They can even set it up in the portal where the gifts are going to be automatically set up. Right. Where we just mail them out, every month, every quarter, however often we're going to do it. Now, they do have to be at least, and I should say this, every grant out of the giving fund has to be at least $250 because we don't charge any fees. Right. And so we don't want to do a whole bunch of small checks. So if you give less than $250, you just got to wait till you're ready to give $250. But it is a great way for churches to do it. And I love it because then when I come in and speak at a church, if the church is modeling it and the pastor is modeling it, it really helps us when we're trying to teach business owners and high capacity families the value of it, and they're like, oh wow, this is a really great way to do our giving.
Yeah. So to recap, first, it simplifies everything. That's huge. Yes, you go through a little bit of a process to get it started, but that's actually not complicated whatsoever. There's no lawyers involved or anybody like that. You can get that started. It takes a day or whatever. And then the second thing is tax advantages. There's no point in giving more money to the government. I think somebody told me one time, tax avoidance is okay. Tax evasion is not. But this is just tax avoidance, right?
That's right.
Then legacy, I think that was the fourth one. Yes. But legacy, this idea of being able to pass this down to, and what was the third one?
The third one's maximum kingdom impact.
Maximum kingdom impact.
Rather than money sitting somewhere else, it's sitting at CFR where you're helping awesome churches like LifePoint get a loan.
And we even have that for our, personally, and I know a lot of people from LifePoint or some people have their emergency fund there. So it's not their donor advised giving fund or it's just like, if I'm going to put, say, $15,000 sitting somewhere in an emergency fund, it doesn't need to be at Truist. It could be at CFR where it's actually having kingdom impact. Yeah. Well, any last thoughts just for people that are maybe thinking about it?
Yeah. So why don't I give, this is more advanced, but I want to list them out there just because it may be applicable to somebody in your church. So one is, the first advanced strategy is, if you are a real estate investor or a business owner and you're ever looking to sell real estate, or maybe you're going to sell your business in the future, tuck back in your mind, before I ever do that, I ought to consider maybe transferring some percentage of what I own into a giving fund. Because a lot of times these business owners build their businesses from scratch. They've got all these crazy capital gains, and one day when they go to sell the business or sell their real estate, they have a massive tax bill. Yeah. If they put a percentage of that into their giving fund ahead of time, but they have to do it ahead of time, then they get a massive tax write-off. So that's really powerful for them. The second one is, this is a real advanced one, if you're somebody that has a retirement account, like a 401k, a 403b, an IRA, and just if you got a really healthy size one that probably you're never going to spend all the money from, I typically recommend to people they list the primary beneficiary as their spouse, but then the contingent beneficiary be their giving fund.
Right.
And so what happens if, them and their spouse pass away, then that money they never paid any tax on, now it gets to go into a giving fund, and now it never gets taxed either, which is really cool, because if they pass it to kids or they pass it to other people, you got to pay tax on it. Right. And then the third one is like we talked about earlier, is that mission support for churches. I think if a church is ever listening to this, that's a great way to do that giving. So it's really great. Well,
there's a lot of information for some people, because I know, like, some people, it's difficult to talk about, or money just, they their eyes roll back in their head. But again, there's a diligence factor here. Like, the Bible talks about money a lot, but it all belongs to God.
That's right.
Every single bit of it belongs. Everything that's in my checking account, my donor, that's all His, right? So I want to be as wise with God's money as I can. And this is just a simple thing to do, to be wise with the money, to maximize the kingdom impact, make it simple for yourself. It's really a no-brainer. So I'm going to put, I think, probably here in this video, a link where people could go straight to checking it out, and also the information in case they want to get in touch with somebody at CFR, Christian Financial Resource, to get more information about it. But man, thank you for sharing this. Thanks for your partnership. Thanks for everything you guys do for the kingdom. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Phil. And I just also wanted to offer this. So you guys have been a great partner. Of course, everybody knows you're my golfing buddy. So, so one of the joys of having a giving fund myself is I get to pick some favorite ministry partners at times and bless them. And LifePoint's been a great partner over the years. So one of the things that I wanted to encourage the families at LifePoint is, if you open up a giving fund in January, make a grant to LifePoint. The Key family is going to match your first $250 grant to LifePoint. And knowing how you promote things, I'll probably end up having to write a big check. But
I'm going to make sure of it.
That's right, exactly. So, but you got to do it in January, because I like people to be not procrastinate, because we find that's a big challenge. But so they do that in January. Make a grant to LifePoint before the end of the month. Yeah, and it'll be a huge blessing. So.
Thank you so much. That's amazing. Well, see, that should. I'll go talk to the camera again. That should tell you everything you need to know. Darren, I've known him for 20 years now. We do golf together, and he is the real deal. Like, this isn't just about money. There is behind, all of this money stuff is the desire to see people reach for the kingdom, and I appreciate that about you. So thank you so much. We'll sign off for now. God bless you guys.